Hi, everyone, and welcome to SPED Homeschool Conversations. We're so glad you're with us tonight. Sorry we had some technical difficulties getting started, so if you were planning on watching this one place, it may take some people a while to find out where we are. But we're broadcasting live tonight on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope, and on Twitch, which I hadn't planned, but in the craziness, hit the wrong button. So if you're joining us from there, welcome. We normally don't broadcast to that platform, but maybe we will in the future. We'll see. But tonight we're kicking off a brand new topic on our show, which we do a different topic every month, and we're going to be talking about community this month, as a lot of new people are homeschooling and wondering, how do I get connected with others? And we hope that this month we'll be able to give you some solutions. And tonight my special guest is Allison Gentala. And Allison, I just want to thank you for taking time out to join me this evening and to really share with our community just how to find local support. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I am happy to be here talking about some of my favorite topics, community and homeschooling special needs kids.
Yeah, and that's our SPED Homeschool, of course, stands for Specialized Education Homeschool, and our goal of our nonprofit is to empower parents and families just to teach a specialized education at home. So that's why we do this show every week and talk to different experts. So I also want to thank our sponsor this evening. It's Right Start Math, and you can see their website there, rightstartmath.com. We'll hear more from them about halfway through the show, but we just want to thank Right Start Math for sponsoring this episode, and also for being a partner with us at SPED Homeschool. So Allison, as we kick off our discussion here, can you just tell us a little bit about your homeschooling journey and your family, just so that we know a little bit more about you, and I know you're probably going to share some stories with us about how your families found local support. So that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, my start in the homeschool community was many years ago. My parents were some of those early pioneer homeschoolers in the 1980s, and they decided to pull my brothers and I out of school and start this crazy thing called homeschool that we had really never heard of, and nobody did that back then. So people didn't understand. If we were out during the day, we got all the questions. Do you go to school? Why are you sick? Why are you out of school?
Right.
And so I had a lovely experience homeschooling. Went on to college where I met my husband, Peter, who had also homeschooled. His parents had homeschooled him for the majority of his years, and we got married, and we've now been married 22 years, and we have 8 children. And so for us, because we had both homeschooled and we had both had beautiful experiences with that, we didn't really even discuss too much. We just knew that we were going to homeschool our kids, and so this is year 14 of homeschool for us. So
wow.
It's been quite a journey, seen a lot of changes, especially from the 80s to now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But all different kinds of stages and phases over the years. But that's my story, and I'm still here in the trenches homeschooling. Like I said, I have 8 children. 4 of them are special education students. We have a different diagnosis, from autism to dyslexia to the mixed expressive receptive ADHD. We kind of got a little of everything in our house. And so it's been a learning curve for me. I do have a Bachelor of Science in Education, and I spent some time in the classroom, but so much has changed. We've learned so much more about different diagnoses and how to really help kids soar and be successful, that it's just it's all new, even though I do have the degree and so forth. So it's steep learning curve, and I'm in the trenches daily, working with my kids. So.
Yeah, and I've heard that too from other people that have education degrees, that it just doesn't prepare you for homeschooling. No. It's a completely different different animal. So,
Yeah, it totally is.
and plus you put your heart so much into it, and you want to serve each of your children, which are different, and with your unique learners even more so. So yeah, that's an awesome thing to point out, because I think a lot of parents say, "Well, I'm not a teacher, I can't homeschool," and
Right,
even if you are a teacher, you sometimes feel like you can't homeschool.
right,
So,
right.
looks like we have a couple people that said hello. Natalie Max said, "Hey Peggy Fleur." Hi Natalie, thanks for watching. And Christina said, "I'm interested in homeschooling my kids." Well, Christina, you are in the right place. I hope you stay with us this hour and find out a little bit more about connecting with your local homeschooling community. Also, you can check out our website at spedhomeschool.com. We have a whole area on getting started. And Allison will also be talking about the organization that she works with, and some resources that they have probably for you as well, especially if you live in Arizona. So,
Right.
um, yeah, but we're going to be talking about resources that you can really use in any state, even any country. I know we do have some viewers who watch from other countries, and we just want you to know that a lot of what we're going to be talking about tonight are things that you'll be able to find locally as well. So definitely stay tuned in with us, and put your questions in the feed and comments, and we're happy to have you as part of our conversation. So Allison, because we're talking about finding local support, can you tell us about your family's journey in finding a homeschooling community that was a good fit, and maybe just how that has morphed, I guess, maybe through the years as well.
Yeah. Well, in the really very early years, I didn't really connect to homeschool communities per se. I had
Hmm.
connections at my church, and
Right.
from the very beginning, even before we were homeschooling, I was going to our state convention that was put on by
Mm-hmm.
our state organization, which is Arizona Families for Home Education. So I was going to the convention, just soaking it in, trying to learn.
Mm.
Um, it wasn't until we had homeschooled maybe a year, um, full on academics, that I realized I really needed that support. I needed other moms who could come
Mm-hmm.
alongside me, or just to understand,
Mm-hmm.
because it is difficult. And so we connected. We found this really great PE program in our area that meets out at a park 2 days a week, and another
Awesome.
support group that had really fun things like spelling bee and
Hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
history fair, and we would do picnics in the park, and the kids would have bring all their little bottle rockets and shoot them up in the air. And so it's just a really great community, and it's bonding to be doing the same thing together. So that was
Right.
kind of our
Yeah.
early years. We did that, and then over the time, with 8 children and always having some baby and toddler, in the mix, that
Exactly.
needed naps, and um, we would juggle, we would switch it up just a little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think those early years, I look back on those, it's just, such a sweet time. They
Hmm.
were all little, they were all with me all the time. And those friendships that started, they're still there. They Some
Mm-hmm.
of the moms are still homeschooling. Some of them have graduated their kids and moved on, and I'm still here because I have 8 kids.
You have 8 kids.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so anyway, those that support is really what continues to get you through the process,
Yeah.
because homeschooling those special education students is a whole different challenge, and having people
Mm-hmm.
who understand that is really vital. Um, and then as the kids began to get older, we were able to get into uh, more time consuming
Hmm.
co-ops. So we have a co-op now that meets all day long on Mondays, and the kids go to
Oh
all of these
wow.
classes, and
Mm-hmm.
we are still doing that same PE program. 12,
Wow.
13 years later, we're still
Uh-huh.
there. Seeing a lot of people come and go. The relationships change, people move on, they
Right.
graduate their kids or so
Mm-hmm.
forth. But um, Arizona just has so many different support groups. We through
Hmm.
even through that support group that did the spelling bees and all, we were able to
Yeah.
connect with smaller groups that were just moms getting together and
Hmm.
saying, hey, I'd really love to see a literature club. So let's get together, choose the books,
Right.
and we just did it.
Mm-hmm.
Robotics clubs and all of those fun things. Some of them are larger organizations, but sometimes it's just two or three moms
Mm-hmm.
getting together and make happen what they want to see for their kids.
Right. That kind of takes it outside the box because we often think, well, what is being offered and what can I, take part in? But really, what you're saying is get involved in something. Even if it's just a little thing, and start making those connections because you'll find commonalities with other people, and then within those commonalities and the commonalities of your kids, things morph and
Yeah.
change, and they just build on each other because of those common interests. So
Right.
yeah, we found the same thing too, and I think we get so stressed out about finding the right program or the right group, and sometimes that right group just needs to happen. so,
Right. Right.
so yeah, that's an important point definitely to
Yeah.
make,
And
and
sometimes
yeah.
I give parents the same advice I give about curriculum when it comes
Mm,
to support groups and community. You try a curriculum, you pick what you think is going to work, but don't feel bad about saying, this just really isn't working. So we either
mm-hmm.
need to change the curriculum a little bit or just go ahead and find a new curriculum. And it's totally fine to do
Right.
that. Same with support groups. If you hop in there and start building relationships, but
Mm-hmm.
if it isn't a good fit for you or your children or your schedule, don't feel bad about, hopping over and finding another one to connect
Mm-hmm.
with.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're not married to those people.
Right.
You haven't signed a contract that I'm going to stay my
Right.
entire homeschool career. That's a very good point. But then on the flip side, I was thinking about this as you were talking about it, is you shouldn't stay just because you feel that it's an obligation of yours to stay either if it's not working, because then you do get entrenched and feel like I
Mhm.
have to stay because now this is my homeschool community, and I can't leave from there either. And I've seen that backfire on people too. And yeah, we have to know when it's okay to leave and when it's okay to stay. And so yeah, those are
Right.
some very good points. Um, yeah, so good. Um, so so yeah, your community has definitely morphed and changed as your kids have changed, as their ages have changed, as their interests have changed. And this is a question I didn't build in, but I definitely want to ask it. Is for families who homeschool kids with multiple different ages, how do you balance that? Because with 8 kids, there's a lot of interests in activities. And, do
Yeah.
you put a cap on this is how much we can do? I mean, we always say homeschoolers aren't socialized, but, really homeschoolers are probably the most socialized kids that are out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And mom has to say, stop, I can't be more socialized right now.
Right. Right. Um, I tend to look for the activities or the programs or co-ops that the majority of the kids can participate in. And
Mm-hmm.
even when planning just a personal field trip with my kids, I'm trying to hit that in the middle where the majority of the kids are interested. I spent so many years teaching PE with a baby in a backpack and a toddler. I would set up the whole
Exactly.
super yard gate and put the toddler in and the baby on my
Mm-hmm.
back. And so they just kind of were along for the ride for what the older
Mm-hmm.
kids were doing. And then we hit that point where some of the things I was planning and doing, my older kids had already done them quite a few times and they were ready to not do them. And so I gave them that freedom and then focused on the middle crew and
Mm-hmm.
what things we're doing, how we so just like support groups and everything else, it has changed over time. I really started my homeschool journey very idealistic. I was going to be that perfect Pinterest homeschool mom and all the
Mm-hmm.
ideas. And I really wanted classical education. And there were some co-ops in my area who were very academic and they had focused on that methodology of education. But
Mm-hmm.
once I realized that I had special needs kids and dyslexia, and it wasn't going to
Mm-hmm.
work. So we just didn't join those co-ops. And I had, as the mom, I had to let go of this vision that I had of what I thought it was going to look like, and say,
Yeah.
these
Mm-hmm.
are the kids that I have. This is the path, the journey that we're on. And the
Mm.
focus came in to what is it that each one of my individual children need, where are their
Right.
weaknesses, and how can I encourage their strengths? And so
Mm-hmm.
just a process changing over time. And
Yeah.
every year, maybe even every few months, kind of looking back at it and saying, okay, are we still doing what's best for everybody? Are we still meeting all those needs? But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, with 8 kids, it's quite a juggle
Yeah. Yeah.
for sure.
Exactly. Yep. You have to take it as it comes, and yeah, that's a good way to put it. And yeah, you have to let go of your idealistic ideas of what this is going to look like, and it looks different for every family. Are you okay if we take a little tangent? We have a question
Oh,
from one of
sure.
our viewers, and I know we can probably help her, but it's not on our topic tonight. But I definitely want to address. Lena Marie asks, do you think it's possible to homeschool 2 kids with ADHD and work full time outside the home? Because I'm really struggling and I feel I'm not doing them justice. I think a lot of parents are in this place right now and
Yeah.
asking themselves the same question. Um, so we definitely want to give you some encouragement. But yeah.
That is a tough one. I mean, I would probably come back with a few questions and say, what is your support system like? Do you have
Exactly.
parents or
Mm-hmm.
siblings in town who are very supportive of that and they want to come alongside you? I know
Right.
homeschool families who have grandma comes over and teaches science, and
Mm-hmm.
or watches the kids so mom can take a break. And I would ask, if you have a partner in the home with you, is your partner supportive of that? Are you guys going
Mm-hmm.
to work in that together? Those, I think, would all be very important. I think it can be done. And I've
Mm-hmm.
known people who have worked and homeschooled. The other question I would ask would be, what are the ages of the children?
Yeah.
If we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about kindergarten and first grade, they so much more hands-on, one-on-one
Mm-hmm.
learning. If you're talking
But
about
yet, it's
junior high,
only an
high school,
hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of instruction a day too.
right?
So, so there's the flip of that. But yes, that is so true, because yeah, at
Yeah,
those high school levels, they're much you can work much towards independent study and those
yeah,
things as well. So yeah, and yeah, I've seen the same thing. I knew a couple single moms that homeschool and work full time, that have been involved in our ministry as well. It's been homeschool, and so yeah, it's third grade and eighth grade. So yeah, so you definitely, like Allison said, find that you're gonna need some support, whether it's I know one of the gals that I worked with, she worked nights as a nurse, and so somebody would stay with her kids overnight, or they would sleep at somebody else's house, and then when she came home, she taught school right away, and then she had a nap while they were in the house, and it worked out well. And both of her kids were on the autism spectrum, so it just depends, how you can handle those things, but definitely want to encourage you. She has no support system, so your big thing is getting connected. So definitely listen to what we have to say about that this month, about finding a support system, and figuring out how you can get that, because without it would be very difficult. Yeah. So, I don't have anything else to share, Allison.
no, I agree with you. The support, finding the support around you is going to be very important if you're working full time.
Mm, yeah, yeah, definitely. So, um, yeah, definitely get even looking just in for homeschooling groups around your area, and like even on Facebook, those groups, and just seeing what they're doing, other parents are doing. to get connected, or tutors that they hire, and it may take some teamwork. It depends on where you're located too, on the legalities of how you can do that, and that's what we're going to be talking about next week with HSLDA, about different ways that you can get support legally wherever you are. So, so Allison, you're on the board of AFHE, which is the state homeschooling organization in Arizona. Can you talk with our audience a bit about the importance of state organizations like AFHE and how they can be helpful for families in finding local support?
Yeah, so AFHE is Arizona Families for Home Education, and been around for over 35 years supporting families. And the really amazing thing about state organizations, and almost every state has one, so you can go search and find the homeschool state organization in your state.
And we have a list on our website, so you can look for them there.
Fantastic. That's beautiful. State organizations do so much behind the scenes that nobody ever sees. But the things that you will see is most of them will put on a convention. In Arizona, we have our convention in July, even though that's the hottest time of the year.
I've been there in July, and it's like being in an oven.
A little toasty.
Yeah.
But so we do that. We bring in speakers and to do some training and help parents be inspired and help them learn how they can best do that, homeschooling their children, typical learners or struggling learners. And that is a big event. So much goes in behind the scenes of that. We also have our website up, which provides legal information for families who maybe they're considering or they're just getting started. They don't know, how do I do this in a legal way? In Arizona, you file an affidavit. That's different in every state.
Exactly.
Most state organizations will have a list of support groups on the website, and that's going to be really helpful because you can usually read a little bit about them, link to that support group, and see if it's, what you're looking for to fill in with your family. And AFHE has just started a special education department, and we're really starting to work to try to provide resources and support parents because it's such a need here in Arizona and in every state. One other thing that state organizations do that is very important is they watch the policy and the laws down at your state legislature.
Right.
My husband and I do that as a team, and so we search all the bills, make sure that we don't have laws passed that will make it more difficult to homeschool or that would bring burdensome regulation or restrictions onto homeschool families. And that's very important. So support your state organizations because they are the ones down there, boots on the ground.
Exactly.
And just go to your state organization website and scroll around and see what all is available in your state. You'll be surprised. There's a lot in most states.
Yeah, and a lot of activities too. Like, do you have Capital Days? I know a lot of state organizations do that.
We do. We have our Capital Day in March before it gets too hot. We do it outside, and we've done different things with that. It's fantastic. It's very educational. We usually do a leadership conference for people who are leading support groups, and we do something special for them, just a little training and inspiration to, encourage them to keep moving because they put so much time and effort into creating and maintaining local support groups as well.
Yeah. And, even going to some of those functions, when I speak at a conference, like when I spoke at AFHE and other state conferences, I often will end my talk before it's done. And I get parents into groups to talk to each other because, of course, most of my topics are special education, and they're the parents that need to connect with each other. And so a lot of us that are speakers really want to connect with people that are there so that you go home with new friends. And those may be your new community. You just don't know where you're going to meet them. Or like at Capital Days, you take your kids, teach them more about government, and guess what? We were standing next to these other kids, and we started up a conversation, and we ended up, keeping that conversation going after we went home. So, so yeah, there's just so many things that happen locally that maybe is not special needs, but definitely, get your family involved. These state organizations are worth supporting. I know I worked for two of them, so I definitely understand the nuts and bolts behind the scenes of what that's like, and why your organizations are so important. So I do have that website up, but if you're listening on the podcast, it's AFHE, AFHE.org, and that's for Arizona Families for Home Education. But on the SPED Homeschool website, we have a list of all the state homeschool laws, and your state organization is hooked through most of those. So you may go to the law page, but then just go to the home of that website, and you'll find all the information you need about your state organization as well. So yeah, that's awesome, and I'm just applaud you for your work, because like you said, it's behind the scenes. Not a lot of people see it, but they will notice if the law changes and you're not
Right.
doing that work. And people don't know. I mean, if you're just starting homeschooling, you don't realize that these organizations fought for your freedom to homeschool. A lot of the people that were the original boots on the ground were almost arrested and put in jail for homeschooling their kids. They would have to hide them during the day, and it wasn't as easy of a situation as we have now, the freedoms that we just take advantage of.
Right. And I was one of those kids. We had some
Yeah.
friends in Texas who were taken to court and
Mm-hmm.
over trying to homeschool their children. And there were phases where we really didn't get out much. We kind of, probably best that the kids aren't answering the door, that kind of thing, because there really
Right.
weren't laws at that time in
Mm-hmm.
Texas on
Yep.
what you could and couldn't do. And
Mm-hmm.
so all of the, yeah, all the people who have come before us to create this atmosphere now that we have to homeschool and freedom, I
Mm-hmm.
applaud them. They're my
Yeah.
heroes.
Yeah, definitely. And some of them are still, the original ones are still fighting, and you just
They
have
are.
to, yeah, it's amazing. So, um, yeah. Well, I'm going to give you a little break, Allison, so I
Okay.
can share our sponsor's message, and then I'll bring you back, and we're going to continue this conversation. I know we also got a Lynn Marie said that what we shared was very encouraging. So I'm glad that we were encouraging. I hope you're sticking with us, and will join us for the second half an hour. So we're going to hear from our sponsor, Right Start Math, and Elsa's going to take a break. And I'm going to continue sitting on the floor. I had some major technical difficulties, and you can see my backdrop is not what it usually is if you're watching the video. And so my lighting's awful. I do apologize, but at least we have a show tonight. So, but I want to thank Right Start Math for sponsoring this episode. I'm going to put their website up. It's rightstartmath.com, and I'm just going to read a little bit to you from them. Right Start Math will help your child understand, apply, and enjoy mathematics using games to learn concepts, strategies, and to practice math facts. This unique program uses visualization of quantities and de-emphasizes counting, and provides strategies, visual pictures, for learning the facts. Place value is introduced early to solidify the child's understanding. And the primary tool is the AL abacus, specifically designed two-sided abacus that's kinesthetic and visual. So if you have those kinesthetic and visual learners, this might be something to check out. Do your children like to play games? Well, they have that too. They have over 300 card games that kids will love, and they want to help your child achieve success by getting rid of the frustration and the tears while having fun doing math. And wouldn't we all like that, having fun doing math? So I know I enjoy math, but I know a lot of you don't as parents, and maybe your students don't either. So check out their website at rightstartmath.com. And thank you, Right Start, for sponsoring this episode. And we're going to bring Allison back, and we're going to continue this conversation in talking about how we find local support for our homeschooling families. And that isn't a cookie cutter type of thing. it is kind of what we've already been talking about. But maybe we could talk a little bit more about that and just customizing that type of support. And I know we touched on it earlier that it morphs definitely with our family, but also that it isn't something that we can just go out and find and plop ourselves into sometimes, especially when we have kids with different needs. And I shared last night, I was speaking on the Global Home Education Conference about how my first and only co-op experience ended up with my son being kicked out. Kind of like he was kicked out of kindergarten at the private school too. It wasn't it wasn't a good fit for our family. So I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there who have said, I've tried that community, I've tried getting involved, I just don't. But what are some other options as far as what you've used in the past and seen that have worked well for your kids that maybe aren't so fit in the box types?
Right. I have found over the years that I need to be willing and ready to just gently educate people on my children and how they're going to respond to things, or something that might look like defiance, but really it's a slow processing or an auditory processing.
Right.
Or I've asked special permission before for my son with autism to hop down to a younger class. And I've said I think this is a better place for him, even though he's just a little bit older. And people will ask legitimate questions. If they don't know anything about autism, they say, well, will he be able to cut the stuff out and use scissors? And and there's a broad range of kids with autism and what they can and can't do. So I just try to be very gracious. I haven't had any situations where anyone was intentionally mean, but I have had situations where I needed to step in and explain and just gently educate so that it creates a better environment for everyone, really. And then there's an understanding. And the next time your child is called on and they don't answer for a couple of minutes, that teacher knows, just going to give them a couple seconds and he'll process it and come up with the answer.
Right. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. It's a lot about communication, and can we bridge that gap of communication, and are the people that we're working with willing to listen and to maybe change some preconceived ideas of what a response might be, like with somebody that does have a slower processing speed, or a child that has maybe needs to stem and has a fidget toy, and yes, that how can we find something that's not distracting to the rest of the class, but yet allows them to be comforted enough to handle the anxiety of being in that group environment enough. So it definitely is a process, and to be able to, and to know when that time is right, and like you said, if your child needs to move down a grade level, and the great thing is about like co-ops, it's not like they're learning the basic subjects, like reading and math. It's the extracurriculars. So a grade down isn't really going to matter that much as, if you put them a grade down in like public or private school where they'd have all their academics. So that's a really good point. Definitely. But, yeah. I'm going to make sure I have comments up. So if you're watching and you have a comment or question, make sure you add that in the feed. I'm going to go to my next question, though. So what advice do you have for a family who may be struggling to figure out what type of homeschooling support would be best for their entire family? Because I know you kind of addressed this a little bit about how, you have 8 kids. And what works for our family is not always what works for just one or two or three children, and even taking ourselves into consideration. I realized that over the years that I need the support too, and it's not just about getting my kids connected, but it's about getting me the support I need so that I don't lose lose it either.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just my best advice would be find something that you feel like is going to be a good fit for your family and hop in and try it out. If it doesn't work, you can move on. If it does, or maybe you meet people there and you don't end up staying at that particular support group, but you end up forming maybe it's just a park day. The moms just show up at the park,
Mm-hmm.
kids play, get all their energy out, and moms get to sit in their little camping chairs and watch the kids
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and connect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so something so much less formal than oftentimes what we think about is I'm going to a support group, or I'm going to go to co-op, or we're going to go to this sports activity, or all these other things, or these homeschool events, and yeah, it may be just connecting, and that's great. I think we have to go in though, and with a spirit of inquisitiveness, just realizing that we need to be asking people questions and not just saying, will you accept me or not, but what else do you do? Where do you know and because we've moved a lot. I don't know if you've moved a lot during your homeschooling years, but we've lived in our RV. We've moved multiple times to different cities, and it's like you start all over again, and you have to reform. And every situation is different too, because living in a rural community versus living in the suburbs gives you completely different choices on how you connect with homeschoolers in your area. So, um, yeah.
We have a lot of rural areas here in Arizona, and one of the things I
Mm.
found that is really interesting to me is that it seems like those homeschool families in the rural areas are bonded together in a different way, almost how I remember from the 1980s, where that's who you
Yes.
have, and you have to be together. And
Mm-hmm.
in Maricopa County, which is our heavily populated area around Phoenix, you can
Mm-hmm.
do just about anything you want to do a la carte. So you may go here for one class, here for another, and um,
Mm-hmm.
those rural areas they really bond together. It's nice to see.
Yeah, I found the same thing true when we lived out in the sticks. But but it was because when we got together, it was for support. It wasn't for classes for our kids. And then the support group was anybody who homeschooled. Your teaching methodology didn't matter because our kids didn't come with us. It was moms only.
Uh,
But what we did was we connected as moms, and then we would go over to each other's houses, and our kids would then get to play. And I think that is what created a better community, especially for my kids, because those co-op situations, they just didn't work out very well when my kids weren't made to be learning classrooms. They learned best when they were building or had their hands on things. And so yeah, that may be something to look for. And I think, like you said, though, that's what happened long ago when homeschooling was first getting off the ground. And it's kind of sad to see that we have kind of morphed into more of that classroom sharing teaching versus the support that we really need as moms.
yeah.
Yeah. So, is there any way that you get support for yourself that maybe is not not something you find on the Affy website, but how do you do that?
Yeah, I start with um, trying to create or cultivate an atmosphere of my husband and I, with us having a strong marriage. We
Mm.
take a weekly date night, and it's really important. We connect, we talk about things with the kids sometimes we have a rule, we're not talking about the kids. We have teenagers and young adults in our home now, so it's not
Mm-hmm.
a challenging babysitting situation anymore.
Right.
um, but we do that. I also, for about 4 or 5 years, I was a part of a mom's literature club. And it was just a
Huh.
bunch of homeschool moms. We got together and one year we just did Jane Austen all year, a different Jane Austen
Oh,
book every month.
awesome.
So once a month we get together and have treats and,
Mm-hmm.
sit around and laugh and talk about the book and whether we
Mm-hmm.
liked it or didn't like it. And it was just a really great time, just as
Yeah.
moms. Um, we're not, we're not talking about what curriculum we're using, or it's just us and something we love to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's one homeschool mom that's a friend of mine out here that loves to do hiking trips, and she just plans hiking trips, and everyone can
Oh,
just
awesome.
jump in and go along with her. There's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, beautiful places out here to get out in nature. And
Mm-hmm.
so those have been some of the things over time. And I've looked
Right.
for those moments. There have been seasons where my husband would allow me to, I mean, he would take over and manage all the kids. And I would pull away once a week and I would go to Panera or some little restaurant, and I'd take all my curriculum and just sit in the
Mm-hmm.
quiet and do my planning. And
Mm-hmm.
just that uninterrupted time to get everything pulled together meant so
Right.
much for our school week. Then everything was ready to go, and it kind of took away a lot of the stress.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good, spectrum that you've just given us. The spectrum from, I need my isolation too. It's just not that I'm isolated with my family, but I need to be alone. My husband would do the same thing, and he would park our camper somewhere and leave me. And I would do planning for a weekend all alone in the camper. And then he'd come back and pick me up at the end of the weekend. So,
That sounds lovely. I think
but
we need to get a
yes,
camper.
yeah, yeah. but that alone time is important too. You need time to just rejuvenate and rest and kind of step away too and gather that bigger picture, because we lose it when we're in the day to day of teaching. And but also I love that you mentioned our own personal interests too as moms, and how we can bring others into that. So I'm sure the person who led your literature group loved reading and just
Yeah.
said, I want to read with other moms. So, whatever we like to do, just to invite people into our lives to enjoy those activities. And what a perfect thing to do when, with COVID, I know, they're trying to encourage smaller groups getting together. Well, have a few people over and say, this is what I like to do at my home. I know I haven't been able to get on them in a couple months because of my surgeries, but my aerial silks, I had people over and just trying them out, and it was a lot of fun just to be able to share that hobby with some other like-minded people that were willing to climb up some ropes. So.
Yeah. And I will say one of the things about community that I would encourage, and I don't know if there's somebody who's struggling with this tonight that needs to hear this, but early on, as I started recognizing that my children would have difficulty co-op or have some behavioral issues, and I just I became very private. I didn't want to have people
Mm,
over because I didn't want to open that up. I didn't want to be
yeah.
that real with people. And I
Hmm.
would just encourage any moms listening tonight to just um, let people into your life.
Yeah.
People want to be a part, and invite them in, be willing to accept help. There were
Hmm.
years where I didn't want to accept any help. No, I got this. I can do it.
Hmm.
I'm a strong, independent Texas woman. I can do this. And there's so much beauty in allowing people, they get blessed by
Yeah.
coming over. I had a friend say, I want to take all of your kids all day long, and you have to leave the house, and I'm going to make dinner for you, and I'm going to
Oh.
you put loads of laundry in there. We'll do it. I'm keeping the kids. Go do whatever you want to do. And
Hmm.
it was such a blessing to me.
Hmm.
um, I have had that happen a couple of times over the years, and the first time it was so hard to like, oh, my house isn't really that clean, and what if the kids get in a fight, and just
Hmm.
to let it go and trust that people are going to see past that,
Yeah.
because we all want community.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And yeah, we don't have picture perfect lives. It's just not going to happen, especially when you homeschool. Your house is
Right.
chaos. It's just that's just the reality of it. And I'm now getting to the point. My kids are all almost adults, and I'm like, I'm only picking up after the cat and the dog, and so it's kind of a sad situation. I'm like, well, okay, I go upstairs and I find dishes, but that's about it. So. Um, but yeah, it's a season, and in that season, we have to be willing to accept the community that God sends our way, and the way people are willing to come into our lives, and it may not be, like you said, as picture perfect as we want other people to see us, but it's what it is, and yeah, I remember a mom sharing with me that she had a neighbor who didn't have children with special needs, but she did. And, their kids would get into some feuds because, of course, this child didn't understand what a child with autism would do if they, you know, if some conflict came up. And so, it was a learning process for this other family, but they said, we want to learn and we want our kids to be best friends, and we are willing to work with you to bridge that gap. And those are, I mean, that's what you want to find is not people who are like you, but people who are willing to come alongside you. And the same with your family. And it sounds like you've found that in your community as you've looked for support too.
Yeah, we have, and we've even found over the years a few couples that we go double date with too that
Hmm.
um, they may or may not have special needs kids, but we're homeschooling, we're in the journey together, and we just, you know, every couple of weeks call them up, hey, let's go do dinner, and it's just so refreshing. The kids are at
Mm.
home, and um, just to share all those stages of life because you're going to have these
Yeah.
beautiful times. There are homeschool days where I go, this is what I always imagined it would be like. It's so beautiful and smooth. And then there are days where I'm like pulling my hair out, like, okay, put the books down. We're just going to go ride bikes for a little while and um,
Right.
take a little reset and come back to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's through the ups and downs because that's really what it is. And our community, if our community is strong and our support is strong, then that's gonna last through all of those different twists and turns. Um, so, well, we're almost wrapped up, but I just want to say, is there anything else that's on your mind, or what you want to share with our community about support and just to be encouraged? If they're really feeling like, I've tried this and I've tried that, and I feel like I'm hitting a brick wall. I just don't even know what to do with getting the support I need, and I feel like I'm burnt out. I need something, and I think we get to that point of desperate, and it's what do I do? And especially with COVID, and there's so many things that maybe even people who have homeschooled for a long time are feeling this because my co-op's not meeting anymore. My kids, I can't get them out of the house. And so, what do I do? Any bit of advice?
I would just say, don't give up.
Yeah.
Keep searching for that. There have been in the early years, I didn't have that kind of support, and I was constantly looking for it and wanting to find that support. And sometimes it just takes time um, for
Yeah.
to figure out what's going to be a good fit and which families like to do the same things you like to. Who's going to be
Mm,
your hiking buddy family, and who's going to be your
right.
cook out in the backyard buddy family. Um, but I would just say don't give up. Don't
Mm-hmm.
Let me encourage you, don't embrace the fear of people are just
Mm,
going to reject me. There may be people who do reject you at some point,
yeah.
but I would say, keep going because not everybody is going to be that way, and keep looking for those families who are going to love your children just
Mm-hmm.
for who they are and are going to love you and you can do life with. So keep trying the next thing and the next thing, but don't give up. That community is so important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so true. We can get so siloed so quick just because of fear, and I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, we can close ourselves in and say, I've tried enough, and it's just not worth trying anymore. But it is. It's worth trying one more time, and especially for your kids. I'm sure your kids have probably, like I think you said this earlier, they've developed some friends, even from those early years into now, and I've seen the same thing with my kids. We've moved 3 times since we were in this small little group of just 3 families, and my 21-year-old's best friend is still in Minnesota from that group, and it's interesting because my son's older brother was on the autism spectrum, and it just happened that this young man was on the autism spectrum and his older brother was not. And so for my son to have that understanding, because his brother and all the things that he dealt with, and so you just don't know. And they're this mom and she's the one who prays over sped homeschool. That is her ministry, to pray for us. And so, just to make connections that are lifelong and meaningful, and it's worth the pursuit. So yeah, I love that because we want to give in to the fear and just go back to what feels comfortable, or what we're told that, yeah, just plow through it, do it on your own, and but it's worth the pursuit of community, definitely. So yeah. So I'm going to bring up the AFHE website one more time, and so people can get connected with you. So is it Arizona Families for Home Education? It's afhe.org, and so on there they can find a whole bunch of different resources. But even if they're not in Arizona, what are some things that might be applicable to people all in other states as well that they can find on your website?
Well, we do have a blog on our website with articles that are written. We are in the process of trying to get lots of resources up there for families with special education students. So those things would be helpful in
Right.
any
Yeah.
state. Um, our laws and so forth are going to be Arizona,
Right.
but yeah, we do have articles and blogs up. I think we have a little store where you can buy things like a template to create your high school transcript and some things like that that you could buy from any state.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty much universal. So yeah. That's awesome. So definitely check out the AFHE website, and also, like I said, on the Sped Homeschool website, spedhomeschool.com, we have a whole listing of all the different state organizations, and like Allison was talking about earlier, is you can find some activities happening with homeschoolers just in Arizona, and also maybe even more local support groups. I know in Texas, the Texas Homeschool Coalition, they have a map, and you can put in like your zip code, and it'll give you all the groups that are around you, and so it's pretty interactive. And I think a lot of states have that technology as well. So that makes it easier to say, well, what's near me that that's happening. And sometimes it's just events too. Do you have an event calendar as well?
That is a really good question. I don't do the website. I'm in the special needs area and I do our government policy work, but I
Cindy's on.
believe there is a calendar on there. I hate to say it, then there's not, but lots of resources and ways to connect, and Facebook too. And
Yeah.
we have
Oh,
quite a
yeah.
few
You have a
Facebook.
Facebook group as well.
Yeah, and we have one for people considering homeschool. We have one for special needs students in Arizona, and those are fabulous ways. And most states have all of those as well, so you can find the one in your state and get connected.
Yeah.
And
Cindy
I see
from,
that.
yeah, she had said that from AFHE, also said on the website, has a categorized list of books and resources to address certain special needs. So that's great. Yeah,
And we
there's
have a
so
virtual
many.
magazine.
Oh,
online too.
yeah.
So.
Uh-huh. That's great. Yep, I think I've submitted some articles for that in the past. Um, so yeah, so lots of good resources from your state organizations. Don't discount them. I know a lot of people say, well, we're free to homeschool. We can do whatever we want. Just know that they are the reason you are free and support them, definitely. And also, they're there to continue that support for you and to get you connected with a lot of different resources in your state locally. So yeah. And also, I want to thank Right Start Math for sponsoring this episode of SPED Homeschool Conversations. Definitely check them out at rightstartmath.com and check out their curriculum, especially if you are thinking that you want to be looking at something different for math curriculum. They're very hands-on and kinesthetic and easy to use. So yeah, well, thank you, Allison, for your time. I really appreciate this discussion. I hope it, and I know it's probably blessed a lot of families because a lot of people are just struggling as they're starting their homeschool journey, or homeschoolers, like I said, that have been around a long time, and their support communities that they have had in the past have fallen apart, and so how do we reconnect and find that local support we need? And so it's been a great conversation. So thank you so much for all that you've had to share.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this has been great. So those of you that are regular listeners, we we'll continue this conversation throughout this month. We've got two more episodes in November, and so we're going to continue talking about getting connected. And so next week we're going to be talking more about what are some different types of groups, and is this legal in my state or not? Because depending on your state, depends on there's a lot of things as far as the legal parameters around what you can use for, like what we call now a homeschool pod. That's a whole new expression, and based on your state law, that's either legal or not, or it depends on how many kids you have or how many families are involved. It's
Right.
very complicated. So we're going to talk about that with two representatives from the Homeschool Legal Defense Association next week, Faith Behrens and Darren Jones will be with us. Yeah. Yes. And so that'll happen next week, and then the following week we're going to talk about how to start your own group. So if you're feeling like I want to do this, and I've got something like Allison was talking about, I've got an interest and I think I want to start something official, then we're going to be talking about how you can do that and how do you get that started and up and running. And so lots of good things yet to come this month on getting you connected, and that's going to, like we've been talking tonight with Allison about, it's unique to you and your family. So don't think you got to fit in the box even for this. It's definitely a flexible thing to have when you're homeschooling. So anyways, thank you again, Allison. Thank you all for joining us. Hopefully I won't be sitting on the floor next week when I do the broadcast, but at least I have internet. So yes, I'm going to get up and stretch. And so I'll see you all next week. And thank you again for joining us on SPED Homeschool Conversations. Have a great night, everyone. Bye.